Welcome to the Seattle City Makers Podcast. I'm your producer and occasional fill-in host, James Sido. Well, thanks for joining us on this episode. You know, the calendar is inching its way toward the end of 2023, and there have been a ton of notable happenings in Seattle so far this calendar year, and I think one such signature moment occurred in early September. The Seattle Times headline read, "Revamped Bumbershoot is a reassertion of Seattle's identity." And as luck would have it, we've got one of the co-architects of that revival on our podcast today. We've got co-president and director of music programming, Steven Severin, joining us. And this was a fascinating conversation. Steven wears a lot of hats and is a really, really interesting guy. In addition to his job at Bumbershoot, he is the co-owner of Neumo's, the legendary music venue at 10th and Pike, the co-owner of Barboza, the co-owner of Life on Mars, a plant-based vegan restaurant bar with an incredible wall of vinyl, a really cool place that I highly recommend checking out. Steven is a veteran of the local music scene and really has his finger on the pulse of that sector. So we're going to dig into a lot of things, like the time that a multi-Grammy-winning artist was singing through nerves early in her career at Neumo's. We're going to talk about the work of Steven and his colleagues with Save Our Stages, and that led to Congress passing our nation's largest ever arts bill. As I said, Steven and I are going to talk about the status of the music sector in Seattle and what venues are having to deal with right now and what the future looks like. And of course, we're going to talk about the revival, the return, and the future of Bumbershoot. And after our conversation, I'm going to have some details of an incredible program that could play a huge role in the local music and art scene for years to come. And it is a program born out of Bumbershoot. And if any of you know Steven at all, then you know that there, of course, had to be some level of NBA talk. Hope you enjoyed this conversation with Steven Severin. Thank you for joining us today, Steven.
Thanks for having me.
As I like to say it, and I've said this about you, I've said this about a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine who lives in Portland, who is in a similar set of jobs, that you and he both have jobs I think would be the envy of just about anybody in their respective cities. It's this intersection of food, live music, and there's a little bit of basketball in there as well, right? So
yeah.
How did you come to this place? How did this happen?
It's kind of funny because when I think back of like the jobs that I thought I would be doing once I was in high school. Once I was in high school, I sort of had in my head, if I ever get to a point where I make $50,000 a year, I'll be set.
Sure.
Which the funny thing is that my mindset hasn't changed that much because I don't spend money on things. Travel, food, that's about it. So it's worked out pretty well. But I've always been a music fan. I started going to shows when I was 12. And
when you were 12, you were in?
I was in California still. I moved to Arizona for high school and everything until I moved here.
Okay.
Arizona is probably more where I was going to shows, buying records, really getting into music being a huge part of what my identity was. Like I skateboarded, I listened to music, I went to shows, and I went to class sometimes.
Yeah.
That was what I did. That's what I loved. And I moved to Seattle in 92, kind of on a whim. Just I was on a road trip and got here and decided I wasn't going to go back. And then a few years later, I got a job working at Rock Candy.
Yeah.
Which is, for those that don't know, an old music venue that started in the late 80s when the whole grunge era came up. Pearl Jam came up through there, Soundgarden, etc. And I got a job as a publicist just because I knew the owner. And within a few weeks, she was like, "I need an assistant. Can you do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And I had just quit a job selling burglar alarms.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. That I pretty much hated. And had decided to go back to school, which had been a 10-year break from when I had gone to school before. I'm the only person that ever went to college in my family, so I kind of did it for my mom. Went back to school, started working at Rock Candy, and it just sort of took off from there.
So Rock Candy, you can look that listener, you can look that up on YouTube, and you can go down a rabbit hole of some bands. If you were of a certain age in the 90s, that's going to blow your hair back. The recordings on YouTube may not be that great, but you can spend a lot of time going back through some really wild acts.
And we recorded a lot of those videos that are on YouTube. We recorded everything video and audio. Wow. So like the early Modest Mouse shows, September 23rd, 1998, Modest Mouse headlined one night with Built to Spill opening that night. And then the next day, Built to Spill would headline and Modest Mouse would open. Really amazing shows, amazing stories coming out of there.
I bet.
It was all ages, and you couldn't have any alcohol in at all. And Isaac from Modest Mouse was out back carrying around a 40. And I was like, hey, you can't have that. I was like, can you at least put this in your cup? And he took the 40 and put the bottle in his cup and then walked away from me. I was like, great, you're not going to listen to me. I get it. You're on the way to becoming a rock star, but you're still pretty small at this point. But okay, you do your thing.
Probably some other similar stories of that same kind of vein happened at that venue.
Oh, yeah.
I would bet.
Yeah.
So after Rock
Those
Candy,
are the ones I can say.
Yes. Yes. The ones you can safely say.
Yes.
So after Rock Candy, is the next step Neumos?
No, I went to El Corazon for a cup of coffee. I worked under Chad Criollo, who is now VP of AEG Northwest. And when I was there, he got the call to go over the Showbox market. And when that happened, I got the call to go over to iSpy, which iSpy was a venue at 5th and Virginia. That was a 3-level venue, 500 capacity on the 2 main floors, and then a separate upstairs venue called Nation, which is where we started the original Circle of Fire Monday night breakdancing events that Massive Monkeys came out of. Even though they were showing up when they were way underage.
How under are we talking here?
Oh, very, very underage. People didn't care about IDs as much then. And I was there from 6 months after they started until a few months before that. And then I went over to Chop Suey for a couple of years because I wanted to go learn how to run a business from Linda Dershang. I had it in my head. I wanted to open this tiny little 40-seat bar that was me and my friends, and I was going to learn how to do it from Linda. Now I know that there's a threshold and you have to be able to have so many people in order to make a profit. But I didn't know that then. Unfortunately, she sold 6 months after I got there. Decided she didn't want to be in the venue business anymore. But that made it so that I had to step up and learn how to do everything because the person that they brought in was somebody who used to sell advertising for Comcast, and he didn't know how to run a venue. So me and Quentin Ertel, who owns Havana, he was our GM and just opened Shibuya, a new bar that's focused on really high quality sound and listening to records. And I stayed there for a couple of years. And once I was there in 2004, I believe, they reached out and was like, hey, we're looking to sell part of the business. We've been open a year. Do you want to come? And I was like, nope, I do not want to. I don't have any money. Like I work at a small club. That's not a possibility. And then they made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. And we're now at almost 20 years of being one of the owners at Neumos.
Wow.
Yeah.
Neumos is one of those spots that people who live in Seattle who go see live music, it comes to mind right away. Everyone has a Neumos story. And I would imagine you've got more than a handful that rise to the top of your favorite, but is there an act that has come through there, or is there a top 3 for like most memorable shows or any sort of ranking like that from that storied venue?
Yeah. The first time that Adele played, well, the second time she had played, I believe she played the Triple Door, and then the next time was at Neumo's. And it was before 19 came out. And we were up in the crow's nest, and I didn't know who she was. I didn't have any idea who she was. A promoter brought it in and was like, she's got a great voice. It's going to sell out. I was like, all right, I'll come check it out, because I pretty much lived at the venue then. And we were up in the crow's nest, so the side of the stage, totally sold out show. And once she opened her voice, when she opened her mouth and that voice came out, you could not believe what was happening. And she was so nervous. She was
really?
So shy and so scared. And it was kind of funny because people were kind of making fun of her a little bit because it was really awkward. And then as soon as she started singing, everybody was just in awe. And it was absolutely just incredible.
Was it awkward in that she was trying to engage with the audience at the beginning and she couldn't? Or what was the...
No, she was just up kind of talking to herself and not facing the crowd, and just some long, awkward silences. It was a little strange how she was visibly shaking. Her voice kind of shook a little bit when she was talking.
Yeah.
She was really nervous.
And
then once she started, she clicked in and she was absolutely amazing. And now, well, she's Adele.
Right.
So that was one of those happy accidents that you're at that, people talk about who were there, which there's thousands and thousands of people that were at that show.
And what's your capacity?
Even though we only held 700 people at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty special. The other one that is pretty funny is when Justice played there, as they were pretty close to the top of the next show we did was at Showbox Soto. And the place was, every single person in that place was jumping. We were up in the crow's nest, and I was watching the balcony come apart from the wall as everybody was jumping. And I kept looking and being like, if this falls, we're going to hurt people.
Right.
And I'm out of a job and everything is over. My life is over.
So what'd you do?
We stayed up there because it was so damn fun. It was absolutely amazing. It was just coming off a little bit.
It did not totally become
detached. It did not. No, it was just a little bit. You could just see a little bit of daylight between where the wall and the stud was supposed to be. We got it fixed the next day. It took some time, but yeah, we made sure that it was secure. But that's still one of those shows that everybody that was at, it was just amazing. And then they went and played downstairs in what was known as the VIP room afterwards, which was the basement, which is now Barboza. We just set up turntables and went down there and just kept partying all night.
And when was this, do you think? Do you remember?
Oh, God, no. 2006, 2007, pretty early on where, we weren't as worried about rules and, what you're supposed to do and not supposed to do. It was a little bit of a free-for-all at that point, as we were all new business people as well.
Yeah.
We'd never really owned anything ourselves.
So speaking about the industry, not to take you down too much of a path that I'm sure you'd rather forget, a very trying time, but we're at 2018, 2019. Neumo's is hopping. That entire neighborhood is doing quite well. And the bottom falls out in early 2020. And your industry is one that has one of the most, if not the most difficult time at the start of the pandemic, because your entire business model is based upon bringing people together inside a venue to enjoy something that people were craving and yet reticent to do all at the same time. So you were part of a group that was, I believe the banner was Save Our Stages.
Yeah.
Take us through a little bit of that process and what you all achieved.
When the pandemic hit, we figured that we were going to be closed for 6, 8, 12 weeks tops. We never dreamed that it would have gone that far. And within a week of us closing, I had made a call around to all the people that own or manage venues to get together to figure out how we're going to stay alive. Like, it used to be, if it snowed for 2 days in December, it ruined the month and you were devastated. Now we were looking at weeks and weeks of being closed and not having any idea how we'd be able to make it through. So people that normally competed and didn't, we spoke and we had beers after hours, but we weren't really super tight. And we all worked together to figure out, how do we make it through this? And that's when we formed Washington Nightlife and Music Association. A week later, I got a call from the people who were forming NIVA, the National Independent Venue Alliance, and was just the exact same thing nationally that we had just done locally. And so we started getting together and sharing information and figuring out how we were going to make it through. And this is across the country. So Florida, Texas, New York all act very different than Seattle and Portland.
Yes, very much so.
We were the first to close. We were the last to open.
Yeah.
Very different set of circumstances. And through that, we started figuring out what power we had. We knew that we had the power of how important we were to people, and we had a reach. We didn't have any money, but we had a reach and a way to be able to reach people. And so we basically went to the government and said, we need help in being able to stay open. Otherwise, we're closing. 90%, we did a survey, 90% of the independent venues would have closed if it had gone a year.
Wow.
There's just no way that you can lose that kind of money while you're still paying for your rent, your insurance, all the bills that don't go away, you still have to pay, and you don't have a single dollar coming in.
Yeah.
And so we formed all these different committees, and we all decided what we wanted to do, what group, and I decided to be on the advocacy committee because I had done some stuff here in Washington where we worked with city council and the mayor's office to get rid of some bad bills and to push the art scene. And then that sort of took off. I can't say the name of our group, what we're called. I'll say it and you can edit it out. So the advocacy group was called the and it was basically 40 of us that worked with Congress to get that bill together. And that bill became over $16 billion that went to independent venues, independent agencies, movie theaters, museums, all places that needed money to be able to stay open while people weren't coming. It became the largest arts bill ever. And it took us 2+ years to get it through.
Yeah.
And we talk all the time. I'm still the captain for Washington. I mean, we talk to him twice a week. We still don't believe that we got it done. We still can't believe that people that had never done anything in politics was able to get the Congress to understand how vital we were. I mean, we were able to come up with the cultural argument pretty easily. But then we came up with the economic argument, and that's how we got both sides of the aisle on board. I can't remember which congressperson it was, but they said that it was one of the most, what was the word that they used? It was one of the easiest bills to get on for both sides that they had seen in a long time. Everybody supported it.
Yeah.
It was just a matter of how you get it through because it's so many hoops.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of money. And we all were bracing for closing. I mean, I figured at that point, Neumo's had a good 16, 17-year run. Any venue that had been there had only been 4 years. 16, 17 years, that's a lifetime.
Yeah.
You know, it can close. We had a great run. I could go do something else. I didn't know what. It didn't really matter. And then it came up with the whole SVOG, and it became less, and I know that people don't really want to hear this, it became less about saving Neumos and more about fighting for the other people that I was working with. Like, I wanted to make sure that First Avenue in Minneapolis didn't close. I wanted to make sure that Emos in Austin made it through. Like, I cared more about making sure those people made it through. And then, you know, we all rose up and were able to make it out. A lot of venues didn't. And a lot of venues are still closing across the country because it just hasn't bounced back. And we lost so much money being closed that long.
Yeah. How would you describe the state of the venue industry right now?
Is
it 60, 70% back?
I would say it is probably 65 to 70% back.
Okay.
What we see is the larger events, the big concerts, Climate Pledge Arena, Lumen Field, the bigger amphitheaters, those are all killing it.
Yeah.
Those are doing great. The clubs is a different story. People learned through the pandemic that they can stay home. They don't have to go out all the time. And we're seeing this in all small businesses, all the restaurants and bars of people I know that own them. I mean, their numbers are down quite a bit.
Yeah.
Just because people just decided that they could stay away. And that's a really tough thing to come back from. And when it comes to clubs, I don't think it ever gets back to where we were before.
Yeah.
I just don't. I think too much has changed.
I think 2019 is the incorrect baseline.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And 2019 was huge.
Yeah.
2019 was the biggest year we had in quite some time and across the country. Everybody ate really well in 2019. And then the bottom fell out, and it's just never going to be the same again.
If it doesn't get back to that level, what's the realistic expectation you think that you can have for how close you can get? Or what does that new reality look like for you and for other venue operators?
I mean, for Neumos and Barboza, we're going to be fine. We're in Capitol Hill. We're a staple.
Yeah.
Our talent directors are amazing. They know how to shift with people's whims on what they like with all the dance nights. That was something I would have never done when I was booking the room. I'm all about live music.
Yeah.
I didn't think people wanted to come see Rihanna and Friends. My God, I was wrong. I'm so wrong.
Yeah.
And people have figured that out across the country. But a lot of venues are going under. A lot of venues, I know one venue right now in Seattle that's going to go under. They're fighting to figure out how they can make it. And I know a couple others that are just tired of losing money and tired of the fight to maybe break even in a pretty tough industry. Not everybody wants to be up till 3 a.m. every night.
Right.
You know, it can be tough. So, and that's happening across the country. I mean, a lot of venues have closed and people are just, they're giving up because everything else kept increasing. Like, our cost to run is 25 to 30% higher.
Okay.
Cost to run Life on Mars is 25 to 30% higher. You can't raise your expenses and your rates to match that.
Yeah.
So you just lose money.
Yeah.
You lose you are not making anywhere near where you were before, profit-wise, which the funny thing about small businesses is people don't expect us to make profit, which
Right.
I don't know how we're supposed to pay our rent and groceries.
Yeah.
And
It's all supposed to be about the love of the craft, right?
Yeah. If you're a small business,
Yeah.
like if you're an artist, starving artist, like you're just supposed to do it because you love it. No.
Right.
No, we
Right.
have to make money so we can pay things. And there's too many people that are just fighting and they're going to give up. And I don't blame anybody that does. I'm like, I've heard people go under and, the social media is getting mad that, they're not willing to do it anymore. And it's like, well, it would be a lot easier if we could just go and get a job at Amazon and have a guaranteed salary and know exactly how much we're going to get paid every month.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a pretty amazing thing that we just don't have.
Right.
But we do it because we love what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty special.
Your industry and the community support, in my mind, it reached a new level when you look at the last 3 years at Bumbershoot. And you and your partners put together a couple days worth of concerts, of fashion, of food, of attraction that in many ways people felt that event symbolized a reintroduction to Seattle, a kind of a reaffirmation of Seattle's soul. And there was a Seattle Times headline that reiterated that as well. And as we're recording this, I know that that Bumbershoot happened a little more than a month ago, but are you just now waking up from that marathon of an event and reflect on that and what you think the first iteration of the new and improved Bumbershoot was?
So right now I have goosebumps just hearing you say that, because it was such a labor of love. One of the things that we talked about often early on was why we were doing it was because of the soul of Seattle. It had been affected. Things have changed quite drastically over the last 25 years in this city.
Yeah.
And, you can find good things and bad things about it, whatever. I'm not here to judge that. There's always ways to find cool stuff happening. You just got to look a little harder than maybe you used to.
Yeah.
So it was really important. The three of us got together deciding to do this. We talked about how important it was to bring back not what Bumbershoot used to be, but more of what it used to feel like. Bring back the excitement, bring back the fun, bring back the entertainment aspect of it. And being small, independent owners and artists, we were able to do it without a spreadsheets economics mindset.
Okay.
We didn't look at whether it was going to come in the red or black. I mean, with festivals, you lose money for a few years.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's out of the gates, you're going to lose a lot of money.
Okay.
Coachella, great example. The first year, and I can't remember how many years they're out. They're like 25 now.
Mm-hmm.
They lost over $1 million.
Wow.
And they didn't come back the second year because of it.
Uh-huh.
And now that thing prints money.
Yeah.
Most festivals don't. Most festivals fail because they're very, very expensive to run, and it's at the whims of people. And that's sort of what we saw happening with Bumbershoot over the years, is as they tried to change and kind of target different demographics, it just didn't work. people didn't care, and they show they don't care by not buying tickets.
Yeah.
So we didn't focus on that as much as creating the event that we thought people wanted. I got here in 92, so I've been to probably 25 Bumbershoots. I worked with them 03, 08 on the advisory board, just kind of telling them, these are the cool bands that are coming out. There's this guy called Kanye West. He's coming up. He's making a little bit of noise. Yes, you should spend the most money you've ever spent on an artist to have him play the stadium, which was the best advice that I could possibly give.
He's still making some different noise these days.
He's definitely making some different noise. Don't really need to hear his noise now, but really enjoyed it then.
Sure.
And it was a hell of a coup.
Uh-huh.
And so I spent enough time around it, as well as Greg, who has been an artist here for 30 some years, to see what people liked and what they didn't. And we took that and combined it with what we liked. And we're like, here you go. This is our package. We have no idea whether it's going to work or not.
Uh-huh.
This is what we believe people want. This is what we believe Seattle deserves. And so here you go. And we're crossing our fingers that it works, but we literally have no idea. And it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal. I was just talking with our marketing director, Christina Holder, because I can say at this point, it's not happening till tomorrow night.
Okay.
But the Washington Events and Festivals Association, WIFA, is giving us an award for Best Festival for Washington.
Well deserved. Yeah.
Which is really cool. It's a cool conference. It lasts a week. Beth Knox is she's hosting a panel, and Patrick Crum. And so Christina's going to go and accept that, which is really cool because it just sort of validates that people did like what we did. And it's just been really fun to have her talk about. She was at a show the other night, and all these people came up to her that she did not know and thanked her for Bumbershoot. Thanked her for the work that she did on Bumbershoot, and she didn't know the people. I think it was Psychedelic Furs and Squeeze. And just having the community's goodwill, that response, and the media's was phenomenal.
Yeah.
We didn't expect that. We didn't expect to get near as much media as we did. Our PR team, Grandstand, did a phenomenal job. But we always knew we had a good story.
Yeah.
We knew we had a good plan. We knew what we thought would be really entertaining and really fun. And it was just a matter of whether other people cared. And it turned out that they did.
And I think you had timing on your side too, because I think people wanted this to happen, and they wanted that reconnection, and they wanted that signature Seattle celebration, and that's, I think, what you all delivered. Right?
Such a huge focus on bringing the arts back.
Yeah,
bringing the visual and the performance arts, making it more equitable. Over, 2/3 of the musical artists were either BIPOC, LGBTQ plus, or female presenting, and 95% of the visual and performance artists were either of those.
Oh, wow.
So we really focused on trying to be more inclusive in a way that we never had.
Yeah.
Or they never had. This is our first year, so there's not really a us. And I think that really helped get people behind us. And people were rooting for us. They wanted us to win.
Yeah.
Which is not something that happens with Bumbershoot. Years go by, and it's Ben London used to make a funny joke when Bumbershoot was announced that now's the time that everybody's going to start bitching about how horrible Bumbershoot is and all the things that they've done wrong. He's like, it's like a calendar. Every year, this is when it happens. And people really had positive things to say about it, which is that was success.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter how many people came. Like, that matters so that we can do it for years to come.
Yeah.
But success was being able to have people be happy with what we brought.
And I live near Seattle Center, and spent some time at Bumbershoot. And from some data that we collected, I can tell you that in that neighborhood, right around Seattle Center, those 2 days, there were more than 100,000 people, which is quite a bit of foot traffic for your first iteration of Bumbershoot. So what is ahead for the festival?
So right now we are sort of taking a minute to catch our breaths. We're doing 360 evaluations on everything we've done.
Mm-hmm.
We just sent out a survey today of people that bought tickets or were on our email list to figure out what we did right and what we did wrong, so that we can come back next year and make the tweaks. And we're getting, everybody's recharging. Greg's off in Spain right now, trying to get recharged. And
it's a great place to recharge, by the way.
Yeah, he's winning. He is absolutely winning in the recharging. And he'll also go there because this is what he does. He goes somewhere and then he figures out like what he wants to do arts-wise.
Uh-huh.
The man is a fire hose of ideas.
Uh-huh.
It is incredible to just listen to him. And Joe Pags, I believe, is going to Europe next week.
Okay.
To do something similar, something else a little more work oriented. I'm going to go to Seebeck and sit on a deck and stare at the water for a few days.
That sounds great too.
And then we get back to it.
Yeah.
Then we get back to it. I'm the music programming director, so I'll start booking the bands, reaching out for the submissions here in the next few weeks. Last year had over 2,000 submissions.
Wow.
And this year, I'm sure it'll be over 3,000.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of artists to listen to.
Yeah, it is. You got to carve out some time, man.
It's a lot. I mean, luckily, this is my world, so I already know what a lot of them sound like.
Yeah.
And whether they're a good fit or not. And then we're just going to start taking the pieces and figuring out like, okay, how can we make this easier on ourselves? How can we make this better? What worked? What are all the pieces to be able to keep doing this for another 50 years? I don't need to do it for another 50 years, but it would be amazing to be able to get to relaunch something that continues the trajectory that we're on. We're never going to ride a high like this again. You only get to come back once.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
that's a good point.
This feeling is amazing. And I was talking with Christina and I was like, just absorb all of these moments.
Yeah.
Because they don't come again. Like when you go accept our award, soak that in.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're perfectionists and we're going to nitpick every little thing that we do that's not good enough and stress on it and not sleep at night. But now's not the time. Now's the time to soak it all in, enjoy it, and that will actually help us next year make it better. But take the time to enjoy because we get so tunnel vision on, how it's going to be better. It's like,
right.
Just enjoy what we did.
Yeah.
Let's start there.
Yeah. Now, if I recall correctly, when you all took the helm of Bumbershoot, I think that the idea was to expand it beyond that one weekend and make it kind of a year-long festival of sorts. Is that still on the menu?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We want to keep doing more arts programming throughout the years. One of the things that we did this last year was we worked with Amazon and the city of Seattle for the, I believe it's called the Day of Service.
Mm-hmm.
And we created a concert in Denny Park that was, a bunch of great local artists so that when people went after doing their good work around the city, they got to come to a celebration.
Well, that's great, yeah.
So different things like that. Love to do some stuff with downtown. Seen a lot of the cool stuff that Mayor Harrell and council are looking to do. Talking with them a little bit about how we can help and fit in. And then there's a lot of other bigger projects that we want to do. We've got to focus and make sure that we get year 2 launched. But we have several other really, really big ideas because we like big ideas and making a big impact that we're currently working on. And I think that people will be as excited because it's all going to be created from the same aspects and foundation and values on what we brought the 50th anniversary back with. That's
exciting. I think I speak for about everybody in the city that we're looking forward to seeing what year 2 is going to bring at Bumbershoot. Now, the Seattle City Makers podcast has 2 standing questions that we end with. The first of them is, what was your first paycheck earning job?
Oh.
So not an under the table, all cash kind of thing, but what was the first one where you got a paycheck?
In the music industry?
Just ever.
Ever.
Yeah.
My first job was as a paper boy.
Okay. Was that in California?
That was in California, and it would have been whatever minimum wage would have been at the time, which had probably been like $3 an hour.
And your hours were probably getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning?
4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I haven't seen 4 o'clock in the morning, and I don't know how long. I'm past those times.
Yes.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
That's good. So the final question is, provide what you think would be your an itinerary for your ideal Saturday in Seattle. What does that look like for you?
Oh, wow. Saturday in Seattle.
It could be any season. It could be anything happening on a Saturday.
Okay. Let's go get some brunch.
Okay. Gonna go to Life on Mars for that, maybe?
I pop into Life on Mars for a Bloody Mary because I love my venue or my bar, but I'll probably go Cafe Flora. Big fan of that place.
Good.
Probably go down to the water. I love going down by the Sculpture Park, Myrtle Edwards Park. I love that walk down there. I'm really excited to see what the city does with all of the new additions down there.
Same.
That's going to be really, that's going to be fun. I love that area. There or what's the place in the U District? The Mexican place that I like so much on the water.
Is that Agave or Aqua Verde?
Aqua Verde. I'm
Yes.
like, my buddy owns it.
Aqua Verde.
Yes. That's the other spot for lunch. Let's see. In the evening, well, this doesn't get to happen on Saturday, but on Tuesday, I'm going to go to the basketball game.
There you go.
Clippers, Jazz.
Yeah.
Because I'm a huge basketball nerd.
Yes.
I'm already watching preseason.
Same.
I can't wait for that game.
You'll get to see Ochai Agbaji in person. He's very good.
I'm really excited to see Kessler.
Like
that
Walker
guy
Kessler.
is a beast.
He is. Yeah.
He is going to be a per minute,
Yeah, he'll reject some shots tomorrow night.
Yeah. That's going to be really fun. And getting back in the arena, and now that it's Key Arena was great.
Yeah.
Climate Pledge is phenomenal.
Yeah.
They nailed every piece of that.
They did.
So we need to bring our Sonics back. That's a whole other thing. That
how many times a month are you asked about that? When they're coming back?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So many. I spent a bunch of time on getting the MOU for the arena for when it was going to be with Chris Hansen down in Soto, but we couldn't get the street vacation.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah. It's just a matter of time. It's going to come.
They're coming back.
Yeah. And
so your Saturday would be capped by a basketball game, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm gonna cap it at Life on Mars. Hang out in the vinyl room.
Nice.
Have a good bourbon drink.
Okay.
It's such. I know I'm biased because it's mine, but
Yeah.
it's such a great vibe.
Mhm.
I absolutely love hanging out there. And it's fun because you never know who's going to be around.
Yeah.
This weekend, the band White Lung had dinner there.
Okay.
And I won't say who, but people high up in Metallica and Peter Gabriel were in town, and they came and had dinner before their show last night.
That's not bad.
That's not bad.
Right.
And they came because they saw the wall of vinyl.
Of course.
And their visual, and they wanted to come see it for themselves. So
that's great. Sitting
on those couches, looking at that wall, that is my happy place.
That's a good way to end a Saturday night.
Yeah, at 11:30.
There you go. Not 4 a.m.
Not 4 a.m. No, we're good with that now.
All right, Steven, thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Bumbershoot co-president and director of music programming, Steven Severin. You know, one piece of that festival we did not get to in that conversation was the Workforce Development Program. That's a tuition-free program designed to remove barriers of entry for underserved communities while supporting the next generation of industry professionals. Steven said they had a 6-month program where students were paid for their time, and they had 16 people graduate in their very first year. All of them now have been hired in some capacity for music or the arts, and that's a terrific program. And Steven added that in 10 years, Bumbershoot, he thinks, is going to be staffed and run by the program graduates, adding, "This is how we and other institutions activate social change and how Bumbershoot becomes much more than a 2-day music festival." Well, we like to end these episodes with something you just can't miss in downtown, and we're going to stay with the arts for this because you're going to go to Sam for Calder in Motion. That is an exhibit given by the Shirley Family Collection, and if you're not familiar with the work of Alexander Calder, head over to the Olympic Sculpture Park and you'll get a preview of the exhibit because that's where you'll see the eagle. That's a 6-ton sculpture. It's sort of the unofficial symbol of that space. At least it is in my mind. It's beautiful. Well, at SAM, there's going to be more than 45 pieces from Calder on display. That's going to run from November 8th through August 4th. Now, arts and culture is a tremendously huge sector in downtown Seattle, and we like to say that it is certainly one of the things that you simply can't experience elsewhere in the city or the region, and that is the vibrant arts and culture scene that we have here. And SAM is certainly a huge piece of that, and this Calder exhibit is going to be fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of Seattle City Makers. As always, thank you to Spark Creative for production, and fear not, John Scholes will be hosting the next episode. Have a great day.